Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about how to succeed in CRNA school. So we already know that in order to get into CRNA school, you have to have good grades, a good GRE score, good clinical experience and things like that. But it's also important to be able to succeed once you are accepted into CRNA school. And I've put together a list of things that helped me succeed during my 3 years of CRNA school. So one of the more easier things that you can do to help succeed is develop efficient study habits. In nursing school, you probably already developed study habits that worked for you. And in CRNA school, you kind of have to do a similar thing, finding what works for you. And that could mean using index cards to study, recording the lecture if your professor allows it, studying in a study group. Some of the things that worked for me was using index cards, and that's what I used in nursing school to study pharmacology, and that's also what I used in CRNA school to study pharmacology. Another thing that I did was rewrite my notes, which can be very time consuming, but I know for me, rewriting the notes really helped a lot. After I rewrote the notes, I would highlight and read back through them, and any topic that I didn't understand, I would really do a deep dive into my textbooks to really understand the topics very well. I usually spent, on average, about 4 hours studying a day in general, but if there was a test coming up, like say if I had a test on Monday, that weekend leading up to the test, like let's say Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Thursday and Friday, I probably studied around 6 hours after class. And then that Saturday and Sunday, depending on how well I knew the material, I studied anywhere from about 5 hours to up to probably 8 hours a day. So for me, I've never been the person that can sit for just 5 hours straight in the library studying, taking like 30-minute breaks in between to eat lunch or get a snack. Like that was never me. I'm someone who can study for like 2.5 hours, maybe 3 hours max. Then I take a 3 to 4 hour break watching TV, going home, doing laundry, going for a walk outside, and then study for another 3 hours after that. So I could average around 6 to 8 hours of studying a day, but it was really broken up and I spent my whole day focused around studying. So even when I took breaks or I went on a walk or watched a TV show, I knew that that day my main focus was studying. But I just know that I could never concentrate for 6 to 8 hours at a library. That was just never me. That didn't work for me. My mind started to wander. I got restless. So find a study habit or way to study that works for you. I also didn't do study groups. I just did better studying on my own majority of the time. Sometimes I felt like study groups, we could get stuck on a topic that I already knew, or we kind of skimmed over a topic that I didn't know that well. So for me, study groups weren't the most effective way for me to study. But sometimes I would speak with my roommate who was also in the same CRNA program about a topic that was difficult for me to understand and kind of just go to her to have her explain it in a better or different way. And then just now, since we have so much technology, YouTube, Khan Academy on YouTube, there's just so many different resources that cover things related to anesthesia school that were very helpful. Another way to succeed in CRNA school is to practice perseverance. And I think having perseverance throughout CRNA school is essential to maintain mental health, physical health, to be able to do well and study for a long period of time. You have to be able to see beyond the short-term goal of passing this test and getting through this week, and just knowing that all those weeks and all those tests are going to add up to your end goal of becoming a CRNA. And some of the things that you can do to practice perseverance even before starting CRNA school is doing things like picking up a hobby and sticking to it. Say if you are not someone who works out regularly, you could say, okay, for the next 6 months, I'm going to work out 3 to 5 times a week and actually stick to it. Or if you're not a morning person, saying, you know what, I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. every day to get stuff done earlier. And just being able to do that for a long period of time, being able to stick to a schedule, stick to a routine for a long period of time can help you kind of prep yourself for the perseverance that you're going to need in CRNA school. Another important thing for me was to maintain some normalcy. For some reason, when I was in CRNA school, you kind of get into a bubble, the CRNA bubble, where your life is just consumed by school, consumed by studying, because you're surrounded by people who are also in CRNA school with you, talking about CRNA school, talking about anesthesia, talking about tests constantly, which can be overwhelming. And it's important to kind of stay grounded and kind of remember that even though CRNA school is probably one of the most important things for you during that time, there's other things in life that are extremely important also. And just some of the ways that I maintained an aspect of normalcy during CRNA school was going home frequently to visit friends and family. Luckily, I went to a school that was 2.5 hours away from my hometown. So I was frequently able to go home and be around my mom and be around my sister and friends who weren't in CRNA school and were able to talk about other things that were going on in their lives. And I was able to come home to my mom's cooking, and it just grounded me and reminded me that yes, CRNA school is important. Yes, I want to succeed in CRNA school, but there's other things that are also important and other aspects of life that define me as well. Because in CRNA school, it's so easy to be defined by your grades, defined by how well you're doing in clinical, that everything else kind of falls by the wayside. So maintaining a sense of normalcy and a sense of other things are going on around you still, even while you're in CRNA school, kind of helped push me forward in CRNA school. And then another thing to help succeed in CRNA school is to become one with nature. And that sounds kind of weird, but CRNA school can be so stressful. And one of the things that helped me succeed in CRNA school and be able to study and be able to keep going was getting out in nature more, going on walks. By my CRNA school was a huge river, and along the river was like little shops and a walking trail, so you can just kind of walk along the river. And I remember days or weekends where I was stressed or I'd been studying all day in the library, I went to the river and just like ran a mile or two and listened to music. And I just remember feeling so refreshed after being outside, after seeing people running, after seeing the water and like the ducks in the water and hearing the sound of the river. It just made me feel so much better. And I really think there's some truth in that. Nature decreases stress. And one of my favorite Instagrammers, Laura Scott, who's a dermatologist, probably a good amount of you follow her or have heard of her if you're in the medical field. But I remember she made a post about how there was a park that she went to when she had one of her babies, and it really helped her with postpartum depression. And I think there's some truth to that, just showing that in stressful times, sometimes you just need to get outside and hear birds and see animals and just like breathe fresh air to help you decrease stress so you can continue to move forward in life. Or in this situation, move forward in CRNA school. And then another thing that's kind of similar to become one with nature is be like water. And what I mean by that is go with the flow. So in CRNA school, especially in clinicals, you will be pulled in all types of directions. Your patients will be tried in ways that it's never been tried before. And there's so many instances where you just have to bite your tongue. As a student, you have to bite your tongue, unfortunately. Hopefully that culture changes where we can be more open about issues and things like that. But that's another video. But anyway, so just be like water. Go with the flow. Accept things for how they are and continue to shift and adjust as needed. And then one of my last tips is to develop a I can learn anything mentality. When you have days where you are studying and are having a hard time understanding a concept, or you are struggling with intubations or struggling with art line placement, continue to remind yourself and say the mantra, I can learn anything. It may take some practice, it may take some time, but if you are intelligent enough to get into CRNA school, you are intelligent enough to read a textbook, to learn different skills, to develop better techniques when it comes to different anesthesia skills to succeed. I can think back to a time where I was pre-nursing and I was taking anatomy and physiology. And I remember that it was the Friday before our big first anatomy test, where we were gonna have to identify different structures in the body. And I remember being in an anatomy lab that Friday with like two other people in my class, and we were all looking at different structures and like practicing pointing to them and naming them. And I remember seeing the other two people I was working with just be able to name them off faster than me, and then me struggling or me getting them wrong. And I remember just feeling so discouraged. And one of the other students, I think she was an older woman, I can't remember, but she definitely was wise. She looked at me and could tell that I was frustrated and said, like, don't get frustrated. You have all weekend to study. You'll be surprised how much you can learn that quickly. And when I was studying that weekend, I held on to that. I held on to what she told me, and I studied hard. I said, okay, she's right. If I study hard enough, I have 2 days to go hard and study really hard and learn these anatomy structures. So that's what I did. I studied so hard, and then Monday when that test came, I think I got like a 98, the highest score in the class. So just that time in my life, just seeing how right she was, how quickly you can learn something in a short amount of time, I've literally used that and thought back to that instance in my life so many times when I'm having a difficult time, and remember, like, I can learn anything, and there's a lot you can learn in a short amount of time. So remember that mantra, remember that story when you're struggling or you feel like, oh my gosh, I only have 3 more days before this test. Of course, don't cram, but know you can learn so much if you really stick to it and get it done in a short amount of time if you need to. So those are my tips of how to succeed in CRNA school. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I will see you all in the next one.